Mountain Door. Not far from the Black Sea region of Turkey is an impressive range of mountains, but today we're only going to focus on one of them. They discovered a secret entrance in the mountain, and what they saw shocked everyone. The Kapalakea rock tomb literally translates to rock with a door, which is what we're seeing here. It sure looks old and mysterious, right? There's only one door out of all these mountains in the entire range, and it can only be found in the uneven terrain 27 kilometers north of the Korum province. This rock tomb is actually a Hellenistic period structure, meaning it dates all the way back to the BC days. Although there's some recorded evidence that indicates the 2nd century, like the mysterious writing on the door that simply says Ikezios. If you ask the locals what they know about this door, they'll just tell you that it's a mystery. No one has ever gotten it to open, or even knows what it was originally built for. Rumors say it was supposed to be a gold chamber to hide treasures that eventually got stolen by bandits. Another theory is that the door leads somewhere unknown, like a portal. The idea comes from a story of 2 explorers that managed to enter the door and never came back. While we may never know where this door leads, we do actually have an idea of what's behind it. Thanks to the discovery of a small hole that can only be accessed by pulling out a specific rock, some people have managed to crawl through to the center of the base. But unfortunately, if there was something there long ago, it seems to have been cleared out by now. The only thing left is to finally get that door to open. Hey, did you know that if you smash the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell, you're more likely to win the lottery? So what are you waiting for? Ancient handprints. And now for a hands-on experience. We're going all the way to the White Mountains of Wyoming. As you can see, these unique carvings go hand in hand with the tourists who came to visit them. But who carved them, and why are they so unusually large? The simple answer is that someone left their own prints in the sandstone while the mountain was still forming. But that would have been a really long time ago. It also wouldn't account for the stretched out shape of the hands unless the formation intentionally grew around the prints. So maybe it wasn't a human that left its mark here. It's not impossible to say a prehistoric creature could have left a long-handed swipe as it climbed up a once softer form of land. But then there's always the possibility of something extraterrestrial as well. You never want to rule out aliens on these kinds of unsolved mysteries. But one likely theory shows evidence that an ancient civilization may have used a substance from plant roots to soften the sandstone while they imprinted upon it. We may never know the true history behind these long finger impressions, but for now, we might just stick with the alien theory. Secret bunker base. It seems like mountains are the ideal hiding spot for secret doors. This time we're looking at an abandoned bunker in Switzerland called the Schopfloh. The word literally translates to sheep hole in English, mostly because of all the sheep living in the area. But if you can find this bunker hidden among every other mountain in the range, you'll be surprised by its amazing depths. They say that the Swiss Army built it before World War II, but we don't know what they originally used it for. Perhaps it was a training ground for new recruits, or maybe it really just held a stash of weapons and supplies in cases of emergency. Concrete walls reinforced the entire structure, along with iron doors and even shooting holes. Back then, it was built in a natural ice cave and probably looked very different from what we can see today. The ice has since melted due to the warm climates in modern times, and it's currently open for tourists to look around. There are plenty of warning signs along the way to the entrance, so be careful if you're curious enough to see it for yourself. King of the Mountain. This huge fella really puts the mountain in mountain goat. He's been making a splash in social media lately with his mega frame and intimidating size. If you thought that a regular goat in the wild is scary, you definitely don't want to cross paths with this fuzzy fighter. Based on his background, we're taking an educated guess to say that he lives in the Glacier National Park in Montana of the United States. That's where most mountain goats typically thrive and are commonly seen by visitors in the wild. But scientifically speaking, mountain goats aren't really even goats at all. You can tell a bit by their shape and posture, but these goats have more in common with antelope and gazelles. But it's a bit late to start changing their names at this point. The average mountain goat stands at about 5 feet tall in length, but a shorter 3 feet while standing on all fours. This big guy looks to be at least a foot or two taller than the average. For starters, he stands over the person recording while checking to see if the human is a threat. Who knows what he would do if he were on attack? Glacier National Park officials say that mountain goats are wild animals and unpredictable, so you should do your best to stay clear of their path, doubly so if you encounter one as big as this. Viking loot. The frigid lands of Norway are known for their cold weather, especially in the practically Arctic mountain passes. But with climate change on the rise and a rapid increase in fluctuating temperatures, a lot of the frozen mountains have started to defrost. While there are many negative aspects to the sudden decrease in icy environments, there are plenty of historical reasons to get excited. This specific mountain pass was first noticed in 2011 as a means of travel before the ice had taken form. With most of that ice melted, Viking artifacts have been unearthed, revealing an amazing showcase from a lost generation. Excited archaeologists have dug up old hunting arrows, boots and other clothes, and all sorts of outdated tools that once were considered modern technology by those who used them last. Thousands of artifacts have laid dormant over the centuries, with an unknown supply still waiting to be thawed out. A 1,300-year-old set of wooden skis and a 1,700-year-old sandal are among some of the oldest pieces so far. Researchers investigating the area have said they plan to continue digging and monitoring the mountain for more interesting finds until a new wave of snow comes in and slows their project down. The Goatman. Wouldn't it be nice to take a step away from everything in day-to-day human life and live the carefree style of a wild goat? That's probably what Thomas Thwaites thought when he decided to give it a try for himself. The British designer is set to win an IG Nobel Prize for his life-altering change of turning himself into a goat for 6 days. Not to be confused with the actual Nobel Peace Prize, the IG Nobel Prize is presented to those who first make people laugh and then make them think, sort of as a joke. But by using some serious help of professional research team and financial support from the London-based biomedical research group, Wellcome Trust, Thomas Thwaites was able to build a suit that could realize his dream. He could actually live as a goat, for a short time anyway. His goal was to blend in with the other mountain goats and cross through the Alps, which is easier said than done. He worked with goat behavior experts, neuroscientists, and animal researchers to build his suit as realistically close to a goat as he could. By the time he was finished and out grazing, he had full-on prosthetics, a boiler to make grass digestible, and even a new goat friend. He was most worried about being attacked as an outsider, but even through the tensest moments, the herd seemed to have no problem welcoming him in. You could say he walked several miles in their shoes. Flying cows. You may have seen a horsefly, a housefly, or even a dragonfly, but have you ever seen a cow fly? In this case, actual cows are taking to the air. These helpless cows needed a bit of a lift to get from one side of the Alps to the next, leaving many farmers stumped from the dilemma. Cows are notoriously known for being able to walk up distances that they have no way of getting down from. When with their immense of size, it's generally easier to just leave them in whatever new spot they've stumbled upon. But if you have the resources, why not try to solve your cow problem? As long as those resources include a helicopter, at least 10 injured cows in the Clusen Pass region of Switzerland were flown through the mountain pass to Ernenboden for their annual cow parade, and bystanders were delighted at the spectacle. The rest of the livestock managed to make the trek on foot, or should we say hooves. When asked about the situation, farmer Jonas Arnold said, "I didn't ask a cow how it feels after such a flight, as it couldn't answer, but it's only a short distance and has to keep going." He also added that the ones they flew didn't seem to show any different reactions compared to those that walked the trail. Maybe there's something these cows aren't telling us, and they're actually used to flying. Or maybe they're just happy to be anywhere with good weather and plenty of grass. Mountain climbing granddad. People have many unusual methods of coping with grief, and for this 82-year-old granddad, climbing through 288 mountains in Scotland seems to be doing the trick. Nick Gardner originally moved from England to a remote corner of Scotland with his wife over 30 years prior. Unfortunately, his wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and taken into 24/7 hospital care, leaving Nick to struggle all on his own. But instead of sticking around and wasting the last years of his life away, he decided to live out his boyhood dream of mountain climbing. He says that climbing has been a great way for him to re-enable his sense of focus, and deal with mental health struggles. His goal, which would scare some climbing enthusiasts half his age, is to climb all 282 of Scotland's Munros, or mountains about 3,000 feet, and he has to do it all within 1,200 days. At the time of this reporting, he had already finished 177 of those mountains, accomplishing more than half of his goal. During his journeys, he's met several other hikers and shared his story to the point that he was encouraged to join social media and post about it. As his posts and updates go viral, he encourages people to donate money to his fundraising webpage and support the charities Alzheimer's Scotland and the Royal Osteoporosis Society. Top cat. You've probably heard a story or two about cats climbing trees and getting stuck, but what about a cat that climbed a mountain? Imagine the climber's surprise when he scaled the tallest peak in Poland, only to find a ginger tabby had already beaten him to the top. Wojciech Jabinski is one of the ones who recorded this video of an amazingly casual cat sitting over 8,000 feet high on the summit of Rizy. But what is a house cat doing so high up, and why does it seem so nonchalant? The cat was apparently fine with being recorded and didn't mind getting a few scratches behind the ears. Maybe it's just in a cat's nature to climb tall things and not care who finds them. The mountaineer thinks that the cat came from a small tourist hut near the peak, but says that it's just a theory. Still, it's impressive, even if someone else brought the cat for the sake of having a feline companion at the top. But this cat doesn't seem particularly thrilled to be up so high, nor does it seem to have an interest in going back down. The only time it really showed any kind of reaction was when someone opened up their lunch. Apparently, fish isn't the only thing on the menu at this elevation. The missing UFO. There was a lot of excitement over at Lazy Mountain when a large cloud made an unusual shape as if something were crashing to the ground. Many witnesses to the event took pictures and video of this strange occurrence in Alaska, guessing that something had crashed in midair or made some kind of emergency landing. Some even think it was a shot-down UFO. The cloud itself was first spotted at 7 a.m. and took on a long and uncommon spiral shape. Enough people were startled by the event that Alaska State Troopers and the Alaska Rescue Coordination Center even got involved. Reports flooded their offices to the point that they had to coordinate a rescue operation on the off chance that there was really a plane crash or something similar. But when a rescue helicopter made the trip over the region, there was nothing reported on the ground. The state troopers eventually sent out an official news release stating that there were no reports of aircrafts in the area of any way to indicate a crash had occurred. But if that's the case, where did the trail of smoke come from? Perhaps there's still more to this story that's being left unsaid, or it could just be a weird cloud. Rock climbing with a wheelchair. If you can scale a mountain, even with tools and assistance, that's a proud feat not everyone is capable of accomplishing. But if you can do it purely with upper body strength and while sitting in a wheelchair, that's enough to warrant an award. Lai Chi-Wai is the first athlete from China to be nominated for the Laureus World's Best Sporting Award for his impressive accomplishment of climbing Lion Rock in Hong Kong. He was already a 4-time champion of the Asian Rock Climbing Championships and a winner of the X Games Extreme Sports until a tragic car accident paralyzed him from the hip down. This would normally be a career-ending misfortune for most athletes, but Lai Chi-Wai moved on to anything and everything he could do while still in a wheelchair. Boxing, fencing, and table tennis were all a part of his physical lineup, yet nothing could tear him away from the passion of rock climbing. Lion Rock is a 495-meter-tall mountain, recognized as the symbol for Hong Kong's spirit, persistence, resilience, and unity. It's where Lai Chi-Wai was determined to prove himself and succeeded in a true underdog story. He hopes that his determination and accomplishment will motivate others with physical disabilities to always challenge themselves and do what they love. World's biggest ice cave. Hopefully you won't get a cold reception if you visit this ice cave. Eisenwelt, which directly translates to World of Ice Giants, is a natural monument in Austria in the world's biggest ice cave. It sits at 1,641 meters above sea level and dives down into a 26-mile-long maze of other caves, rocks, and ice. Because some of the tunnels run deep and others stay at surface level, an air current flows through all of them and creates a chimney effect that pushes warmer air up and keeps the ice frozen near the bottom. The ice begins to form in the spring as melting water seeps through rocks and crevices with no heat to warm it back up, thus creating these stellar ice formations. But as mesmerizing as this ice cave is today, it was actually completely unknown until the end of the 19th century. A naturalist scientist, Anton Pozelt, first explored only 200 meters of the cave, and a second expedition began after World War I. Not all of the cave is accessible to tourists, but for those who can't stand the cold, there are walkways and bridges to admire this natural frozen landscape. 12-year treasure hunt. If you think a worldwide hidden treasure hunt for $2 million is only possible in the movies, think again. This real-world author and art dealer, Forrest Fenn, secretly buried a treasure valued in the millions that led to a 12-year-long hunt, with the only clues coming from his memoir, The Thrill of the Chase. If you ask us, it sounds like an overly complex way to sell more copies of his book. But as a surprise to us all, the treasure was actually found. The successful treasure hunter wasn't immediately named, but Fenn did tell the world that someone had found it and it had been in Wyoming all along. Of course, not everyone was so willing to believe that this long treasure had been claimed so neatly and without any fanfare. In fact, at least 4 people died in pursuit of the hidden riches. So many were insistent on knowing what the treasure was, where exactly it was found, and who it was now that owned the spoils. After a lawsuit declared the owner to reveal his identity, Jack Stoof came out and admitted that he was the one to crack the code. He still won't reveal where the location of the treasure had been in order to preserve the natural beauty of the location, but he said that he will use the money to pay off his student loan debt. Glacier bike racing. Normally, people tend to stay away from mountain avalanches, and for good reason. But for these extreme sport enthusiasts, Megalavanche is the name of the game, and it involves thousands of bikers riding down a glacier at reckless speeds. The starting line is at a ski resort in the French Alps on the mountain precipice of Pic Blanc, 8,530 feet above sea level. Over 2,000 bike riders glide down the mountaintop to reach speeds around 75 miles per hour, with many losing control and doing their best to avoid the rapidly forming human avalanche. And that's just the start of the race. The race began in 1995 and has grown every year with the exception of 2020. Once racers successfully make it past the snowy side of the mountain, they have to endure 20 more kilometers of a rough terrain and dirt trails until they get to the finish line. Even seasoned bikers struggle to overcome this challenge of a race. At their fastest speed, it still takes a minimum of an hour of intense pedaling and navigating just to get through to the end. And that's not including some of the most brutal wipeouts. The track is designed to be as safe as possible, but every avalanche has its risks. The egg-laying mountain. Many animals produce eggs, either to reproduce or, in the case of farm chickens, feed us and other animals. But why would a mountain need to produce eggs? And more importantly, how is that even possible? Scientists are still looking for the answers, but you can find the cause in southeast China. Chandanya, or the egg-laying cliff, has a reputation for making these mysteriously smooth oval-shaped stones every 30 years. As soon as they seem to hit a specifically ripe age of 3 decades, they fall off of the cliff, almost like being birthed in a way. Many of the locals pray to these stones or use them as good luck charms, assuming they're lucky enough to find one on the ground. But where do they come from? One theory is that they're lumps of calcium carbonate from 500 million years ago that have slowly eroded through the cliffs. But even if that were the case, no one is sure why the stones pop out so round and egg-like. Maybe we just need to give them more time and see if they'll eventually hatch. From the deepest valleys to the highest peaks, there are just too many mountains in the world to count, and any one of them could hold untold secrets. We'll keep our ears out for any more mysteries lying in wait,